Welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden. So glad you could join me on a beautiful day out here in the West. I don't know about there, but still fun because we get to talk about all the stuff we love. Dogs, the outdoors, shotguns, and shotguns. Yeah, in fact, this is one of our periodic Industry Insider episodes featuring Andy McCormick. He is the president of sales and marketing at Pointer Shotguns and Legacy Sports. Yeah, very well-known and growing shotgun and rifle and handgun importer and distributor. They are at the forefront, on the cutting edge in that industry, and we're going to get some insights from Andy. Just so happens, though, that Andy is a fanatic valley quail hunter, too, so I'm going to pick his brain, on your behalf, as well as my own selfish motives. So we'll talk quail, we'll talk shotguns, we'll talk the inside information that you're looking for in the shotgun world. It's all coming up. We'll also talk about an exotic quail destination on our road trip segment, and then you and your friends will suggest some of those essential items that we should carry that we may not be putting in our vest quite yet. It's all brought to you in part by Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products, Pointer Shotguns, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, TrulockChokes Tubes, MidwayUSA.com, Purina Pro Plan Sport Dog Food, LandTrust.com, ESPAmerica.com, and HiViz Shooting Systems. Well, I continue down the path toward a utility test for Flick. Yeah, that's the kind of the mature dog test in the North American Versatile Hunting Dog Association. Whether we find a date that works in my travel schedule is another story, but we're training for the test. And that's, frankly, this is the only test or field trial or anything like that that I think really does prepare you. If you simply train for it, you will become a better hunter. All the same skills. One of them that I run into all the time, whether it's chukars or valley quail in particular, is birds that covey up and then the dog hits a point and then they start kind of milling around or maybe even walking uphill, always walking uphill. So I'm working with Flick on that. We're just getting back to that again, refreshing his memory on, well, in this case, training pigeons. And I'll just carry a few in my vest out there in the field, and then when he's far enough away, I'll lay one down on the ground. I'll dizzy it a little, but I'll lay it down on the ground in a place where when Flick comes back into view, he can probably see that bird. So it's not a test of his pointing ability per se, but what I want him to do when he sees a bird is to stop. And then when I push that bird around a little, and a lot of them are reluctant to fly, and in this case, that's a good thing. Just push it around so it moves back and forth a little bit before it flies off. Well, Flick is over there quivering and looking really hard at it, wanting to get it, and he doesn't. He just stands still. Finally fly that bird. The ultimate test for a single bird was yesterday. It flew up into a nearby tree. And looked at him, looked at me. I walked toward it to get it out of there before Flick broke, and I didn't have to. It flew off. Flick was steady. I went back to him, praised him up, even gave him a little treat. Then we heeled away from it in the opposite direction. Working for me. I'm lucky enough to have pigeons and lots of space to work in. No matter what you're working on, I know what you're thinking about. And that's the upcoming bird season. So I thought I'd ask, what are some of the things that you carry in your vest that we might not have thought of? And got some fascinating answers. So take out your pencil and your paper and make a note of some of these. Maybe you should stuff them into your vest as well. Kenneth Larson carries honey for hypoglycemia. David Gilbertson, an old bootlace to make a temporary leash. I love that idea. Thanks, David. And good to see you recently. Needle driver, better than the cheap hemostats, says Rusty Stroshine. A quilt jig, super glue, and a tourniquet. That sounds like surgery to me. Yikes. Valerie Fauré. There's a great impressionist composer named Gabrielle Fauré, by the way, everybody. A rescue harness. Yeah, I like that, and I really need to get myself on one. Suture kit from Kevin McLaughlin. Pair of dog boots, of course. Thank you, Charlie Forth. Empty pill capsule to use to glue over a split toenail. Yes, Joe Lesmeister. Thanks for the reminder. Small diameter rope for tying legs together when you have to pull out porcupine quills. Kurt Deary. Yeah, thanks, Kurt. Yeah, great idea if the dog will cooperate. Travis Powers describes what you can now look up on the internet as a porcupine quill jig to put in your dog's mouth. Good one. Wound wash with lidocaine, David DeSmither. Yeah, lots of vet wrap. Yeah, I buy it by the dozen rolls now, and there's a lot of places to find that. Snare wires, big problem, of course, out there, especially if you're in trapping country. True cable cutters, says Bill Bopra. Technu for washing out skunk juice. Thank you, Paolo Benedetti. Yeah, great one. Yeah, quill jig again. Thank Matt Kadlubowski for that one. Instant cold packs. Yeah, I got some in my big bag. I don't carry them in the vest, but I love the idea. In fact, I have an instant hot pack too. Jay Lawners, you're using it to cool a dog off. And we could do the same for hypothermia, yeah, when he's cold. Eye wash. A fork holds the skin down when pulling quills out. That's brilliant, Adrian Rice. David List, sorry, you've got everything all figured out already. You don't need to read this post anymore. Thank you very much. Skin stapler, says Steve Hansen. I still can't figure that one out. I don't know. Oversized zip ties. I like that. And can use them to release a conibear trap if you know how to do it, says Gary Schmidt. All great ideas. Thanks for the suggestions. I might have to put a fork in one of those. That is very helpful information. I hope you all made a note of the one or two things maybe you're not carrying, all of you except for David List, who apparently could have written a book on the subject. Anyway, that segment of the show has been brought to you by Pro Plan Sport dog food from Purina, ProPlansport.com. Learn more about the only brand that fuels the most sporting dog champions. Yeah, they're out to win the game, but so are you and your dog. And your dog needs the nutrition that performs as hard as they do, including omega-3 fatty acid and glucosamine to support joint health and mobility during training and throughout their long and productive life. ProPlansport.com. And HiVizSites.com, HIVIZ sites.com. See what you've been missing. Yeah, there's a reason they are original equipment on so many shotguns. The patented interlocking light pipe system allows you to quickly and easily switch out the colors. And there's a variety of them as I'm experimenting. I know that, depending on the environment and lighting conditions. Now, what they do is allow your subconscious to never lose the bead while you're actually looking at the target. Yeah, there's the key relationship right there. Don't think about it because your eye and your mind has already seen it. Learn more about how that works at HiVizSites.com. And PointerShotguns.com. Yeah, Andy's in the wings waiting right now to talk. Can't wait to talk with him about all the new stuff they got, why they do what they do in the industry, and how it's working these days, especially with a presidential election coming up. So stand by for that. But first of all, know that PointerShotguns.com is where you can shop all their configurations from semi-autos to over and unders, side-by-sides, all the finishes from nickel to blued to case colored to Cerakote in 3 different colors. It should be your first stop for an upgrade, no matter where you are and where you want to be. PointerShotguns.com. Well, every time I talk with this guy, I learn something, and you will too, whether it's about shopping for a shotgun or valley quail, my passion. We'll talk about all of that and more, I can guarantee you. Andy McCormick joins me from Legacy Sports International. He's the president of sales and marketing, an avid valley quail hunter, and my go-to guy when it comes to learning more about shotguns, in particular, their brand, Pointer Shotguns. Andy, welcome to the show.
Hi, Scott. How you doing? Glad to be back on the show. Love chatting with you about hunting in the field and about, obviously, shotguns, too.
Well, you are, I'm so jealous of you because you've got such great quail hunting so close to you, and we'll get to that. We will. But as the industry insider in shotguns for us, that would be the thing to start with for the Upland Nation podcast. So first off, congratulations. Target Focus Life, major internet influencer, just named you the best shotgun under $500. That's for the Pointer Acreus, I believe. How do you get to that point where you can sell a $500 shotgun and get everybody who knows something about it excited?
Well, it comes down to a lot of things, Scott. Actually, it all starts and originates with having, excellent relations and communications with your factories abroad, and keeping them well in tune with the demands of the American hunters that we service for field guns. And basic field guns like the review you're talking about was a case-colored over-under and a 20 gauge that he did the review on, that'll be posted out for people to see. And the topic was, an over-under shotgun for a field gun under $500. And, that statement alone is pretty amazing when you think about it, because a lot of people, I think, for a long time had the misconception that wanting to have an over-under in the field was something that was out of their price range, or something you really had to save for to take possession of something like that and enjoy in the field. Whereas we've kind of made it a standard fare now with our offering of the Pointer Acreus over-unders in various models and gauges across the board, even youth over-unders that we sell quite a few of, amazingly, year after year. We do a standard model, which is just a Turkish walnut, nothing, fancy in the wood, just a nice Turkish walnut field grade with the standard receiver, and like I said, sub gauges, all with 5 chokes, barrel selectors, safety, mechanical triggers, crisp mechanical triggers, which is nice. He even calls that out in the video you're mentioning, that they're pretty nice triggers for a shotgun in that price range. So it's knowing what the guys are looking for in the field, the price range they're looking for, a nice perceived value at a great cost, and having a factory that'll produce that for you consistently to be successful, which is some of the big hurdles. And then, today's world is really screwed up in reference to, freight costs and all that stuff. You got to take into consideration how you're shipping freight to make sure you get the best price so you can pass that on to consumer. A lot of things go into the equation, but we've been very fortunate with the Pointer brand, to be utilized by you in the field and various other folks, as well as our whole staff utilizes it. And we do a lot of business with conservation groups and banquets and fundraisers, and it fits a really, really good niche, as well as our normal retail and distribution stuff. Yeah,
can't argue any of that at all. But you alluded to something that I remember on your journey to a side-by-side. And by the way, thank you. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But, we all know by now that many, many shotguns come from overseas. The challenge becomes what happens over there, and how do you influence that? Because a lot of people will just order a truckload of something, and it comes back, and we've seen it with other manufacturers. They got to send the whole batch back. How do you guys stay on top of the quality control issue?
Well, that's a very key point, honestly, in many ways, because last thing you want is to have any kind of issues like that, warranty issues, safety issues, etc. And the big thing for us is to have employees in place under the legacy name that are employed and are in place where the factories are.
Yeah.
And spend time on the factory floor, QCing product before it gets, boxed up in a container and on the way here. And then there's the other communications of nonstop with the hierarchy of the factories to make sure that they too understand what we're expecting, repeatedly. And bringing to their attention if there is something that comes up, be it, maybe there's a choke tube not fitting correctly, or if there's some kind of issue on form and fit, or do we need a little bit deeper checkering, or do we need better, crisper triggers, that kind of stuff. And constantly bringing that stuff to the surface is, and not take it for granted, and us being shooters and hunters on this end, it helps in that evaluation and passing that on.
I believe it. Let's talk about the the side-by-side thing, because as most people know, I shoot a lot of side-by-sides, not totally, but I use a little bit of everything. But this was a real odyssey for you guys, and I remember sitting with Rick Hankey, your CEO, for most of One Pheasant Fest, talking about how it's come and it's gone, and you just got to really work hard on finding the right design, the right manufacturer. How hard is it to get something like that to market?
Well, it's extremely hard because a lot of it has to do about how they're fusing the barrels together in a side-by-side and the time it takes. It's easy to put out, black synthetic shotguns more so than a crafted walnut side-by-side.
Yeah.
It's just fact. So it takes more time, energy, and a factory has to just devote that energy into a production schedule and go with it. And fortunately this year, we had 12 and 20 gauges, but this year we've added 28 and 410s to the side-by-side that have come out extremely nicely.
Is there something uniquely challenging about a two horizontal barrels as opposed to two, one on top of the other barrels?
Well, it's just, the receivers become a little bit more technical, lined up with the firing pins and the sequence and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just a little bit more time.
Yeah,
is takes and attention, and getting gauge size shrunk down to match the gauge of the shotgun instead of just putting a 20 gauge in a 12 gauge frame or something like that. So we know that's not what people want. So we truly have sized them accordingly to go to market, and I think that's attractive as well as the price, and the looks. They look at our case color heat treated guns look fabulous. I
just got to break in here because when I opened the first one that you sent me, I was gobsmacked, as they say over there. That kind of beauty in a $500 shotgun it's just hard to believe.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And it's an amazing process where they heat those receivers up to almost 900 degrees. And then they drop them into a furnace where they get heated up. Then they pull them up out of there in batches, of a dozen or so. And then they swing it over to another vat that's actually a cyanide dip. And it's an art to how they do it to get that rippling effect on there. It's truly amazing. And, it comes out extremely nice, and we don't just do it on the receiver.
Yeah.
We do it on the fore-end tang, for the release. Mm-hmm. We do it on the top of the receiver. We do it on the lever. It's on the trigger guard. So it's not just, a one-spot deal. It's very nicely laid out throughout the shotgun itself.
We could talk all day about colors, but I do want to allude to the Cerakoting thing because, I used to, back in the day when I was too dumb to not do otherwise, I used to paint houses in my summer vacations. And I know even the best paint has a little bit of thickness to it. But Cerakoting is different than that, isn't it?
Oh, it's completely different. It's actual ceramic coating that is and not only a great protecting, but also a natural lubricant. So it's been used for military purposes to Now it's the car industry. The big fad is to have your car Cerakoted, ceramic Cerakoted, for the coating and the paint and the rain to run off it and all that good stuff. So it's everywhere now for a variety of reasons. But for a hunter and a shooter, it makes sense because it's I'm not going to say it's indestructible, but it's a great deterrent for, anything from rust to dirt to keeping your finish in place. It's just a great product.
And it looks cool.
It looks cool. You can get all kinds of colors. Our top colors, that we utilize are OD green, gray, and flat dark earth or bronze or something like that.
Love it. Hey, you're listening to the Upland Nation podcast. Scott Linden here. That's Andy McCormick with Pointer Shotguns. Now, Pointer is one of the brands. You also have something for just about everybody, whatever they're hunting or shooting at. What are the other brand names and what kind of firearms do they cover?
Oh, well, Legacy Sports as a whole covers a complete umbrella of recreational firearms, self-defense firearms, precision rifle shooting stuff. So it covers a broad gamut of offerings in the Howa rifle lineup.
Mm-hmm.
We do things from heavy barrel, short barrel, mini actions, short action, long action, standard calibers, magnum calibers, all the new PRC calibers. And then you have Citadel products that we do as well that are a lineup of 1911 handguns in a variety of sizes and colors. And then we also do our Citadel CP9s, which is a 9mm synthetic Glock-like looking firearm that we do in a variety of colors as well. And then you have, like I said, the Pointer lineup that is pretty extensive. And then we also have our other Southern Cross firearms as well that carries a new product to accommodate some of the crazy regulations that are going on in our world. It's a pump action AR looking 223. So it's legal in all 50 states. So states like Massachusetts, New York, or Illinois, or Washington, or other states that have pending, the legislation to, restrict firearms purchases, that gun's legal there. So there's a variety of different things we offer. I mean, truly, handguns, shotguns, rifles, all the above at a very, affordable price range with a high perceived value. That's the goal.
I never thought about it when I was in another industry, and those industries that I was working with had to, kind of toe the federal line in a lot of regulatory ways. You're up against that on a daily basis, aren't you guys?
Oh, we are. And right now they're trying to really, really restrict what we can export out of the country.
Yeah.
We do a lot of both import and export, as well as some light manufacturing here in Reno, Nevada. And so, you have to be on top of all that stuff all the time. It's amazing.
Is there
cost of fuel and all that kind of stuff comes into the equation, the availability of containers, whether or not you put it on the water in a container or you put it in the air to get it here, speed to market, all that kind of stuff, and the costs involved with that, you got to evaluate all that. A lot of things in motion.
Is there anything in particular on the regulatory side that you're anticipating or planning for that, may affect the consumer, the downrange market?
I'd say, the big thing is, there always seems to be a push of somewhere to add extra taxes to, the sportsman besides the excise tax we pay, all place in millions and millions of dollars everywhere that is truly keeping everybody's national parks and forests and everything, BLM, all open are the hunters and shooters and fishermen to pay those fees. On top of those are, certain states within the country that are, always looking to enforce gun ban topics wherever they can, be it knee-jerk politics or be it a way to just tax the sportsman out of the realm of being able to afford to go shooting. Or pushing, the non-lead topic or any of that kind of stuff. There's always something, every week, something is coming up.
Oh.
we get tons of intel every week from the National Shooting Sports Foundation or other advocacy groups throughout the country that are, from the NRA to the CRPA to Safari Club International, Quail Unlimited, Pheasants Forever, California Waterfowl, Ducks Unlimited. All these people are involved in those legislative issues or topics for one reason or the other. It's always constant.
Yeah, I don't miss that at all. What do you see in the way of trends in the shotgun world, whether it's design, manufacturing? For example, I brought up to you one of our recent polls, the number of people who plan to buy a side-by-side as their next gun, for example, way higher than I've ever seen it before. What else do you see out there? You got your finger on the pulse more than anybody else I know.
Well, I think a lot of it is still the attraction of the sub gauges.
Yeah.
Scott.
Yeah.
And I myself, like, for example, this last quail season, dove season, chukar season, I shot sub gauge more than I've ever shot, I think, since I've been hunting, honestly. And that may be because I felt lucky because I was getting into birds more often. So I felt I had the luxury of, because I was going to see more birds, I could take more chances with a sub gauge or enjoy the sub gauge. Whereas if, chances are limited, you want to capitalize with 12 gauge semi-auto, plug out, kind of thing. As opposed to the sporting life, where if you got plenty of opportunities, you seem to be able to engage the idea of and the romance of a sub gauge, or side by side.
Yeah, and obviously that's why you brought the the new 410 and 28 gauge on board. Do you see anybody objecting? It used to be, of course, the ballistics of a 410 were always a bone of contention for a lot of people. But right. What do you see as consumer objections, and then the things that attract people to a small gauge? Mine is maybe much like yours. I get to shoot a lot, so I can play around, if you will. If I was really well off, I'd have a garage full of sports cars. But at least I can have a safe full of small gauge guns. Is that the primary attraction, like you said? Or, for example, the fourth day of a chukar hunt, I love carrying a gun that weighs a pound and a half less.
Right. Yeah. I think it's a little both. It depends on, again, the numbers in the field of birds, the numbers of encounters, and then it's have you or have you not ever truly used a sub gauge? Yeah. Where most people shoot 12 gauges their whole life. A lot of people, for whatever, be it squirrels, ducks, pheasants, geese, etc., quail or any of that. That's their go-to gun. It's what you're familiar with. You like to shoot it. But that's the beauty of some of the pointer over-unders. They're all priced the same, so you could get any gauge for the same price, and be familiar with the gun, the fit, etc. Just the weight difference, really, and then obviously a little practice. A good reason to go shoot some sporting clays with a new sub-gauge gun is fun. So I think it's just a matter of, I think there's more people wanting to shoot a sub gauge, and it could be recoil. Yeah. That's another factor. Guys don't like a ton of recoil. I mean, look at me. I haven't picked up a 12 gauge to shoot wild turkeys in probably 7 years now. All I use is a 410 semi-auto, and I've got 2 good gobblers this year with 410s. Yeah. And I giggle every time I pull the trigger because it's just like pop. But the new ammunition, new loads that they have on the market, like the Federal TSS number 9 shot, is simply deadly out of the 410 barrel. It has the equivalent of a 12 gauge 3-inch number 5. Wow. That's amazing. And that's all I used to shoot, was 3-inch number 5 out of a 12 gauge. But now it's the same head to head pretty much with a 410. Yeah. And you know what? I bet there's as many pellets in that 410 as there is the 12 gauge because of the pellet size. Yep. It's crazy. Yeah. Yeah. Lights out. You bring up a point I never really think about, and that is, ammo choice is critical especially if you're necking down your gauge, for example. Yep. Right. That's right. And I shot a lot of 20 gauge this last year. I like shooting 20 gauge on quail, especially if I know I'm shooting tight birds, you know, and you have that opportunity to shoot tight birds with a good dog. There's nothing like it, truly. And I could just as easily probably shot 28 gauge in many of those situations, quite frankly. Now, chucker, it's another story. Whole other mentality. I am a 12 gauge guy through and through for chucker.
I hope we'll have that argument in the field this season. You know, we got a couple minutes before the break here. Andy McCormick at Pointer Shotguns, among other companies. If you were to walk us through the shopping and buying process for a shotgun, and you weren't the guy who's hawking Pointer shotguns, you're just some guy, but you want to help me buy a shotgun. What are the things that I should look for?
I think it comes down to does it fit you well enough? Mm-hmm. B, what's the weight of it, and how far and are you going to be walking with it, utilizing it? What's the barrel length you prefer? You know, most of our shotguns are 28 inch is the average, and I would think that is for most across the board, but there's some guys that prefer longer barrels. There's some guys that prefer shorter barrels, you know, and how it swings and stuff like that. Me, you know, if it comes to quail hunting, upland bird hunting, I'm a snap shooter, you know, so I like a quick, fast gun where I can. And one that fits me when I've got an actual hunting vest on. You know, I would recommend if you're going to shop, you know, take that into consideration. What are you going to be wearing when the majority of the time that you're going to be utilizing that firearm? Yeah. And that comes into the form and fit, not just a T-shirt on a hot summer day, you know, kind of thing. So I think that goes into play. Obviously, what's your budget? What's the warranty on the gun? Is there a good customer service, you know, operation that backs the gun up, you know, like we have? All that kind of stuff comes into play. How many chokes come with the gun? You know, how's the safety mechanism on the gun? The triggers, are they what you like? You don't want a really, really concrete, hard trigger pull on an upland gun, but you don't want a hair trigger either, like a precision rifle. Or something. You know, so, you know, 6 pounds seems to be 6 to 7 pounds seems to be a good weight for a trigger on an upland gun, as long as it's crisp, you know, and a clean break, not just long dragging kind of thing. So those are the kind of things I look for. And do you want ejectors or do you want extractors? Most of the hunting guys I know prefer extractors. Yeah. So they're not worrying about having to pick, you know, shells up in the field, which people should do. This is one of my pet peeves. It seems like more than ever is, you know, finding a barrage of shot shells out in the field these days just irks me, because it's truly littering. And it's just, you know, everybody should do their part to pick your shells up. Yeah, and if you can't buy into that idea, then buy into this one, everybody. If you leave a bunch of empties on the ground, the next guy's going to say, hey, there must be some pretty good shooting right here. I'm coming back over and over again. Divulge a variety of things, but you also divulge that you're not quite, you know, honest. And Debbie, her pet peeve is shells too, and she picks them up all day long when we're out quail hunting together. She'll be picking up shells, old and new, all the time. So I recommend if you see them, pick them up. You see shells, bend down, pick them up, throw them in your vest. I love it. You know? All right. Well, that's Andy McCormick with Pointer Shotguns, Legacy Sports International. I'm Scott Linden. This is the Upland Nation podcast. We'll be back to Andy. We'll talk quail hunting with Andy after the break, and then we'll also be talking on our road trip segment this week about a winter destination for some of the more exotic quail breeds. It's all coming up right here after this word from landtrust.com. Yeah, we are just about there. Trevor Waltz and I, Trevor with Land Trust, we're going to Montana again this year, and we're picking, I mean, the choices are myriad. Just go on the site, landtrust.com. Find a place you think might meet your needs for a private access hunting trip.
one day or more. You and your dog, or you and your dog and a friend, nobody else on the place. It's kind of like a VRBO, but for hunters. You'll be surprised at the assortment of properties available around the country and their affordable prices, especially on a day rate basis. So check it all out. Get outdoors without the crowds at landtrust.com. And TrulockChokes is one way to improve your shooting almost immediately. They make their choke tubes out of the best stainless steel bar stock so that it doesn't rust and it doesn't corrode. They're heat treated to a high strength level, and yeah, for guys like me, they're marked on both the head and the body with the name of the specific constriction, all to make your life easier and maybe put another bird in the bag every once in a while. Lifetime warranty, satisfaction guarantee. There's always some sort of an incentive at TrulockChokes.com. Sign up for the emails. You'll find out about every sale before everybody else. It's all at TrulockChokes.com. Welcome back to the Upland Nation podcast. Scott Linden here and Andy McCormick there. Andy is the president of sales and marketing at Legacy Sports International. He's our industry insider, particularly in the pointer shotgun world. Andy, we've talked business. Now it's time to talk pleasure. I get the feeling from the pictures you send me that you really like to hunt valley quail.
I do. It's one of my favorite. And I think a lot of that has to do because I know it's my dog's favorite.
Yeah.
He absolutely goes berserk over valley quail hunting. It is by far his most favorite quarry, without a doubt. He is the most animated when I see him. When he hears a quail, a valley quail, he distinctly knows their sounds. He knows where to look for them. He's got his head out the window of the truck. The minute he knows we're in a familiar spot, which is uncanny how he can figure all that out. And the windows come down in the truck in the back, and he is back and forth, and he literally is looking for them physically in the brush. Once we get to the zone, if you will, he gets locked on them. And if he hears them, he will not budge until he's either zeroed in on them or is ready to go. I mean, it's true. And he has found birds for me like that on numerous occasions. It's unbelievable, where I'll see a head whip, real quick and alert to something. And I'll go, what's he looking at? And all of a sudden, sure enough, there's a bird on the ground running. And I'll go, son of a gun. And we'll out of the truck, do the ritual and hunt them up. These vast properties that we get to hunt here in the state of Nevada, we have everything from National Forest to BLM. There's a ton of great opportunity here in the state of Nevada, and everybody is pretty much focused on chukar in the state, and duly understandable, because it's like the national holiday here, the opening of the chukar in the state of Nevada. And this year was a phenomenal year. It was kind of a slow start and then picked up, but if you weren't shooting chukar, we were shooting quail, sometimes in the same area, sometimes not, or on a side trip on the way home. It was always planned, either on the way to a chukar spot, there was a quail spot, we were going to hit it. If there was a way on the way back, there's a quail spot, we were going to hit it. If the dogs were still good to go and had all, a good rest and energy. So, yeah, we had a phenomenal season, Scott. You saw a lot of the pictures that I so proudly send of, our adventures in the field here in Nevada on public land that is second to none this last year. I mean, simply unbelievable.
Well, Barley is a dog who, even though I haven't hunted with him yet, by the way, he's a wire-haired pointing Griffon. And how old is he now?
He just turned 6 not too long ago.
Well, our dogs are going to get along just great this season. But you talked also about the whole idea of public land, and I hunt northern Nevada a lot, but not only in Nevada, but in many states, there is a lot of public land. Do you have any kind of advice for people who are looking to hunt more public ground? What should they do? How do they proceed? Are there tools they can use? How do you do it?
Well, like a lot of hunting situations, a lot of it's word of mouth and communication amongst friends who are out and about looking for their stuff, possibly, or scouting for other stuff. And they'll say, yeah, I came across a ton of quail in this one area over here, or saw a bunch over here. That's part of the game. And then there's, going back to hot spots you've had in the past that may have kind of died off, but, in a cycle have come back. And when you have years with excellent water available and excellent feed available and excellent cover that sprouts up with all of that water, you tend to have a great situation to develop for the quail. It doesn't take long for those quail to come back extremely strong. And, I think it's good. I keep a journal. And a lot of times I'll go back and leaf through that journal from a year or so ago, and I'll look at it and I'll say, hey, you know what? We haven't been over this spot in a while. We should probably loop around, one of these days and check it out. And a lot of times there's a lot of fruition that comes from that, quite frankly.
Yeah. I'm thinking of a place not quite down to Nevada where we had a range fire about 5-6 years ago and just basically wrote it off the list. But a couple years back, I thought, well, let's just go up and take a look, see how bad the damage. Oh, wait, there's no damage anymore. It grew back. It's the usual situation, and sure enough, chukars and quail in the very same spot.
Yeah, you got to have the cover, you got to have the water, you got to have the food. And as long as it's not getting hammered, religiously nonstop by people, that's another part of it too.
Yeah.
And, 85% of Nevada is public land. So there's lots of places to go. I went north, south, east, west this year. Any direction I could go, there were a half dozen or more spots I could hit, knowing that I was going to get into birds. And to me, that's what it's all about. I want to make sure my dog gets into birds.
Yeah.
And the more he gets into birds and you keep that predator-prey mentality constantly alive, the better off you'll be as that dog continues to educate and educate. And I think this year was probably the best educational year ever for this particular dog. Because of the amount of birds we kept continuing to get into from beginning to end of season. We were up to, my last count, I think, was 155 valley quail this year, which is the most I've ever got into.
Wow.
And successfully got into. And for that to happen, a dog has to be into a lot of birds. Really.
Yeah. I agree. And the funny thing is there's a corollary to all of that. When your dog puts two and two together and realizes this is a guy who drives me across the county to put me in a place where I can find all these birds and have wonderful fun, the dog understands that and he becomes a better dog to you as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, because he's, he's hunting for you.
Yeah.
Not so much for him, but at the same time thoroughly enjoying it. And he's proud. You can see that he is extremely proud. We literally hunted the last day of the season on a very cold, windy, wet, snowy day. And we were about to hang everything up for the day, and we just happened to catch a glimpse of one quail herding across through some sagebrush about 50 yards away at one spot we had gone to just to pull over, have a cup of coffee, and relax for a second. And the dog spotted it too, and he was freaking out. I said, well, and it's pouring. I said, okay, well, there's one, there's got to be more. So we get out of the truck. I got the rain gear on, and I cut the dog loose, and I heel him before I got to go under and through a barbed wire fence on a conservancy piece of property that's along the Truckee River. And it's about, a few miles outside of Reno. And sure enough, dog goes on point, and I'm just getting through the fence, and he's looking at me like, can I go, Dad? Can I go? I said, hang on. And I cut him loose. I caught him up. And sure enough, we ended up going through and collecting, I think, 6 birds out of that stop. And there were no less than 30-some birds got up out of the sagebrush in different pockets that sitting tight want to go. And that's the funnest part. You know, you shoot one, reload, dog retrieves, comes back, you send him another direction, you just keep going, you know, like little popcorns coming out of the sage. Well, we got down to the last bird. He picks it up and literally goes on point with a bird in his mouth. Yeah. 5 feet away from me. I'm like, dude, we're done, dude. It's over. We're done. And he's looking at me like, come on, you know, we got to go. But I wish I would have had a picture of him on point with a bird in his mouth.
Oh, that is great. And, you know, once in a while.
It was a great season. It was just really put a big grin on my face.
Absolutely.
So I went back to the truck.
Yeah. You know, a lot of people are kind of new to valley quail, or they're thinking about valley quail, especially if they're thinking about, you know, chukars, and they want to, you know, it seems like a lot of people really want to try a chukar hunt. Well, as you've said, and I tell everybody, the joy of a chukar hunt is at the end of the day, you walk down the hill, you go through the draw on the way to the truck, and that's where the quail are. And but beyond that, there's a lot more to it, and you know, they're called valley quail for a reason. So let's talk about cover and terrain a little bit. I'll start. My biggest observation about valley quail is just that. They like the folds, the little, you know, the little crevasses, the valleys, the stream bottoms. Anything with a little topography to it seems to attract quail. The other thing, speaking of stream bottoms, is, you know, for part of the season early on, they do like water. They do come to water. They drink plain old water. They don't, you know, always get it out of their food. What else would you suggest in the way of habitat and terrain that would clue a new quail hunter into at least maybe finding the place where birds are?
Well, you know, if you can find a valley that has water, a meandering stream with cover on both sides, or at least on one side with a little bit of open space, and then say the bottom of a hill or a ridge line that has some rock cover, some sporadic sagebrush cover, you and your dog will have a much better time than being in a, you know, 4-foot high sagebrush freaking mess. Yeah. Where it's, you know, super hard to the dog to really get on him good and get him up, you know, or pin him down. I like having space where I can see the dog as much as possible, but still know that he's working cover with the wind in his favor, you know, and casting back and forth on your right or left, utilizing the wind and coming up on that brush and being ready. Because, you know, 9 times out of 10 with valley quail, a lot of times they're going to flush on your dog. Yeah. And they see him. Now, if you get that big cubby that's all together still early in the morning or something like that, and you can bust them up, where a lot of times I just let him hunt and hope that he does bust them up. And then I like hunting them, you know, as singles. Yeah. Going to where I saw him go. You got to force yourself to make a mental mark in your head of where a majority of those birds went and sat. And you get your dog in that spot and let him go and let him hunt. And 9 times out of 10, those birds will sit tight after that. You know, I've told you this before, you know, a good trick once you split them up like that too is to blow a hawk call. And it really, really it reinforces that sit tight situation. Because if you're not looking for hawks when you're out bird hunting like we do out here in the West, I do the same thing when I'm fishing. We were just fishing a couple weeks ago up here at Prosser Lake, and there were 4 ospreys and 2 bald eagles all fishing the same water we were. Wow. And we weren't catching anything until we went and fished where the osprey was pulling the fish out of the water. Incredible. So it's kind of the same thing with quail hunting. I'm not saying I've seen quail get snatched by a hawk, but it's very rare you truly see it. They'll chase them. They'll sit on top of them, wait for an opportunity. But if they're there, good chance those hawks know there's a covey there too. Oh, so take advantage of those things, you know. Always look for those birds of prey because they're looking for the same thing you are, And 9 times out of 10, you'll see them sitting on a big tree branch over water in a spot where there's some cover, and they're just waiting for one to make a mistake. And you got to think the same way, and work that kind of same scenario, honestly.
Yeah, thinking more like a predator always seems to pay off, and that's a great observation. I'll never forget, this was a long time ago. We were up on a ridge, and we did bust a covey of quail, and then out of my right peripheral vision, I could see a shadow coming my way. It was a golden eagle, and he nailed one of those quail in midair.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah. I had a smaller hawk earlier this last year chase a quail the same time Barley was chasing a quail.
Wow.
And it was like a race to the finish to see who was going to get there first. And the quail won because he got into the sagebrush fast, this wall of sagebrush. And Barley and the hawk got there at the same time, and the hawk peeled off then, off to the right and went up high, and Barley was still in there and came back. But it was interesting to see the two of them after the same quarry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, that reminds me, another thing that quail will do, should you get a bird in the air, they will fly as low as possible in relation to the brushy cover, because that does kind of foil, especially those Cooper's hawks that are always chasing them. And I'll bet that's what that was that you had over there. Yep. They are relentless when it comes to quail. That's their favorite food. I know. I watch it in the backyard. The other thing that, and you alluded to it, and just to make clear, these quail, they march. They're little marchers, and a couple times a day they're moving from water to feed or loafing cover to roosting cover, and they'll roost in trees. By the way, trees are brush, but they walk around a lot, and so for that reason, as you said, Andy, one of the things I look for is basically bare ground with a lot of overhead cover, canopy, if you will.
Yep.
Not necessarily trees, but like you said, sagebrush, bitter brush, the brushy, shrubby kind of stuff.
Yep. And don't, for God's sakes, do not, underestimate the use of a quail call.
Yeah.
Proper use of a quail call. I mean, to me, it's priceless in the field for prospecting for quail, or just trying to get an answer and say, yep, they're here. You hear one sound off. You're not going to always hear it, but it's worth the try every time when you pull up to see, hey, are they here? Are they not here? There's a lot of inexpensive quail calls, and then there's really nice quail calls. My buddy Jim Matthews makes excellent quail calls out of a variety of different woods over in California. He puts out that great newsletter on Western birds and guzzlers and all that kind of stuff. And there's, I helped Primos come out with a valley quail call. It's an orange call. And then there's, the old loam and wood calls, but whatever suits your fancy, I'd make sure you have a quail call attached to your dog whistle, which I assume everybody has a dog whistle. It drives me crazy that people have hunting dogs and don't train them with whistles.
Well, it's a two-edged sword, because sometimes you want to be a little more stealthy, but that's what the vibrate and the tone buttons are for on your electric collar. So I love mine, and I love my whistle, and I got to dig up my quail call. In fact, I ought to call Jim and have another one. Hopefully.
Problem with that is that means your hand's off your gun.
True.
It's like turkey hunting. I like using a mouth call so I don't have to tie up my hands.
Oh, yeah.
So it's the same kind of scenario. If you've done your work right with a dog, one blast on a whistle a lot of times can make all the difference. That's it. Just a short blast.
Yeah.
And makes a world of difference. And I always have my quail call attached to that call to that whistle lanyard at the same time. There's two of them in my truck at all times.
Yeah, don't leave home without one or two. Any more strategies, tactics that you use on valley quail that I don't, so I can steal them and probably write about them somewhere?
No, I'm just, it's just be persistent. cover some ground, hunt where the birds are. A lot of times, there's days where you want to go check new areas out, but if you have spots, where there's good populations and several coveys. I mean, I have one valley I hunt. I kid you not, there's probably 9 to 10 coveys of 30 to 50 birds in it. And I just go up the valley and down. And if I'm lucky, I can take 1 or 2 birds out of, a covey and move to the next one.
Yeah.
Don't be too greedy, kind of thing. Let them go. Don't really hurt them too hard, and then just if you do that, you'll have birds all season. If you do have that mentality, honestly. And your dog will be in birds all season too, which is great.
Oh, that's why we're there. Speaking of that sort of thing, leave us with this, Andy McCormick. What piece of gear for you or your dog that you always carry in the field?
Lots of water.
Yeah.
Water at the truck in a bowl all the time. When we leave the truck, there's always a water bowl there in case for some reason I get separated from the dog, which is highly irregular for me, but just in case, he knows to go back to the truck, get under the truck for shade if it's hot, and get a drink of water.
Yeah.
Other than that, I always have lots of water on me for myself and the dog in the field. I think that's probably one of the most overlooked things, and it's hard too. And if you're a chukar hunter, man, you got to carry a lot of water, because if you're going on hikes that, are up the ridge, down the ridge, and over to the next ridge, and you get over there and you're out of water for you and your dog, that's a bad scenario.
Hunt over. In fact, that's my advice for people. You don't want to have to quit your hunt once you get to the top just because you ran out of water. So bring more.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have to carry a hydration pack and 2 water bottles, and I would say the other thing is having just a really good, efficient hunting vest.
Yeah.
Is, I think, a big thing to be able to carry, little necessities, power bar, whatever, snack, make sure you've got like a Leatherman tool or something like that is always handy. Small knife, small first aid,
yep.
In case your dog gets into a barbed wire fence or something like that, which can happen out in remote country, an old fence that's down, but still somehow your dog gets snagged on it. Last year, my season started off tremendously bad. The dove opener, my dog was busy wanting to chase quail and got into sagebrush that was full of old barbed wire and ripped his front leg, gashed it wide open. And the day was over right there. And then he was on the mend for, 2 weeks, trying to keep a griffin still and not reopen his wounds, and I was lucky to get him into the vet that day and actually get him sewn up. So those are little things you don't think will ever happen, but, can happen kind of thing. So, so that's it. Just be comfortable. Good boots, obviously. You got to have good boots.
Yeah, and don't buy them the week before.
No. You got to have good boots. Maybe sometimes it's not a bad idea to have 2 pair of boots, one in the truck. Sometimes you're hunting rougher than normal terrain, and then there's other areas that are easier and light on your feet and flat terrain, some of the sagebrush. But if you're hunting both chukar and quail, it's not uncommon to switch boots. And it feels good to get those boots off sometimes. Tear them out and put a fresh pair on.
Well, I have a friend.
Yeah. Tired.
I have a buddy who changes his socks in the middle of the day.
That's a good idea.
You may all steal that one. Yes, and it works. Believe me. Well, this has been fun. Next time we discuss this particular topic, we will be together trying to find our dogs somewhere out there, and I'm looking forward to it. Andy McCormick is the president of sales and marketing for Legacy Sports International. Beyond being a great quail hunter, he's also the guy who brings us pointer shotguns, and for that I'm ever grateful. Andy, always a pleasure. Thanks for being a part of the Upland Nation podcast.
My pleasure as always, and I hope to see you down here for trout season. It's going to be a good one.
Oh, believe me, it's on the list. See you then. Right. Thanks. Yeah, and we've still got more. Speaking of quail, yeah, I'm going to recommend a place that I've had a lot of fun at and can't wait to get back to. Somewhere in the Southwest. So different species and, a different kind of fun. It's all brought to you by Midway USA. They carry just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. And I mean that. I mean camping, fishing, just about anything you might need. They probably have it in stock and ready to ship. The key to this one is pile everything you want into the shopping cart. Sign up for emails or text notifications, and you'll get 10% off that first order. Use shotguns, flies for fishing, lots of great bass fishing gear. Yeah, from high-end rods on down, they've got it. Customer satisfaction is their number one goal. And if you're looking for target ammo, I can't recommend them highly enough. That's where I'm getting all my target ammo. I'm going through a lot of it, and they'll ship it right out, and the prices are competitive, and they have it in stock. What a coincidence. Go to MidwayUSA.com and learn more. MidwayUSA.com. And clean and care for your guns with Sage and Breaker. Sage and Breaker gear is crafted at the highest caliber. They make gun cleaning products, accessories, from gun cleaning mats to cases of all sorts. Don't miss out on future sales and new products. Sign up for the mailing list. Hint, hint, it's almost Father's Day. Yeah, so get on the mailing list so you hear about the sale before everybody else. Well, Road Trip this week takes a trip to New Mexico. Yeah, kind of a dark horse when it comes to hunting in general, unless you're an elk hunter. But for a winter destination, I can't think of a better place to go if you love quail hunting. Deming, New Mexico. We made a show out there a while back. It was all about some fascinating country. You think deserts are desolate? No, they're not. Down around Deming, there's all sorts of incredible stuff. It's pretty close to the White Sands Missile Range and all that. Some really good stuff. There's a wilderness study area south of town, and then there's a lot of BLM land south of town, full of quail. You got to work hard at it. In fact, I learned a new technique for chasing those running sons of guns. These are blue quail, or you could call them scaled quail. And then there's Gambel's quail, and they're all running around out there on the desert. This desert has a lot of cactus, yeah, and that's where the birds like to hide. But there's all sorts of open ground as well, and there are little, I'll just call them miniature arroyos, dry stream beds. That's where the birds run up and down. It's kind of like a freeway for them, so look for that kind of stuff. Excellent winter destination. And if you get frustrated, and your dogs will too, because they will not hold for a pointer very often, then do what we did. Split up into two groups, or one guy and one guy. Spread out and conduct kind of a pincer movement in towards some, ideal cover. You're cutting off some of their escape routes, and it might help you down there in the Deming, New Mexico area. Oh, and while you're there, don't forget to eat both colors of chili, and bring home some Hatch chilies for the kitchen as well. Yeah, Road Trip this week brought to you by ESPAmerica, custom fit digital hearing protection. Yeah, hit the target and save your hearing. I'm doing it. Just made a new video. Didn't need to wear them, but I did, and I'm glad I did. I almost forgot I had them in. And that's one of the joys of custom fit. I love my ESPAmerica hearing protection devices, and you will too. Because of their patented software, the wind noise is dramatically reduced. Because of the design and the custom molding, it's even further reduced. Learn more about what I'm talking about at ESPAmerica.com. And when you're ready to practice, well, there's no better place than Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School. They're over in Western Oregon, so if you're passing through, going up I-5 or something like that, do stop in. Open most days, and they've got every shotgun game imaginable, plus HiViz. Boy, is that a fun one. But more important than any of that is the folks who stock and teach. Stock the shotguns they have for sale and teach people like me who need help. They're hunters as well as excellent target shooters. Subgauge Central, midvalleyclays.com. Give a call to Dave Fiedler. Counsel with him before you pull the trigger on a new shotgun. Find out what you really need based on his decades of experience in the field and on the range. And maybe when you're ready to go, you ought to give them a try. They'll ship anywhere, competitive prices, any gauge, any style, any brand. It's all at midvalleyclays.com. Well, thank you, Andy McCormick, for your insights into one of my favorite pastimes of dogs, and quail. Valley quail in this case. Sure appreciate your insights into the industry as well. Hope you all learned something there. If you like what you heard, please tell somebody about it. We're trying to grow and grow and grow. If you've got a friend who isn't listening, please send them a link to the website, to the app, whatever it takes. If you left a rating or a review, appreciate that as well. And I certainly appreciate the folks who make this all possible: Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products, Purina Pro Plan Sport, ESPAmerica.com, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, TrulockChokes, MidwayUSA.com, LandTrust.com, Pointer Shotguns, and HiViz Shooting Systems. Well, until I meet you at the range or at a training day, I'll see you right here next week. I'm Scott Linden. Thanks for listening to the Upland Nation Podcast.